She lived on the streets with her kids, until they discovered she was the lost daughter of a billionaire. Amanda Johnson shivered from the cold as she adjusted her worn-out coat around her two small children. The line at the Williamsburg Community Soup Kitchen was longer than usual that rainy Thursday, and she tried to shield Ethan and Emma Grace from the icy wind cutting through the New York afternoon. That's when she heard someone shout a name she hadn't heard in over 20 years. Jennifer Reynolds. The sound made her whole body tense. No one had called her by that name since she ran away from home at 15. She pretended not to hear, pulling the children closer, but the voice persisted, growing nearer. Jennifer, my daughter. When she turned, she saw a gray-haired man, impeccably dressed in an expensive suit, holding a yellowed photo between trembling fingers. His brown eyes were identical to hers, and for a moment Amanda felt the world spin. "You've got the wrong person," she murmured, trying to step away. "No, I don't. You're my Jennifer. Look at this photo." He held out the faded image. "You at 15, in our backyard. Remember this scar here?" The man's finger pointed to a small mark on the teenage girl's face in the photo. Instinctively, Amanda touched her own face, where an identical scar cut through her left eyebrow. Emma Grace tugged at her mother's coat. "Mommy, who is this man?" "No one, sweetheart. Let's step out of line." But Richard Reynolds, for it was him standing before her, gently blocked her path. "Please don't run away again. I've spent 20 years looking for you." The people in line began whispering, forming a circle of onlookers around the scene. Ms. Betty, who had run the community center for 15 years, approached with concern. "What's going on here?" "This man has me confused with someone else," Amanda said quickly. "I'm Richard Reynolds," the man introduced himself. "This is my daughter, who disappeared from home 2 decades ago, I'm absolutely certain." The name Reynolds echoed among those present. Everyone in New York City knew the Reynolds family, business owners of one of the country's largest construction companies. Ms. Betty's eyes widened. "Mr. Richard, are you sure?" "I have a DNA kit right here." He pulled a small case from his suit pocket. "I can prove it right now." Amanda stepped back, her heart racing. Ethan, who had been quiet until then, stared at the photo. "Mommy, that girl in the picture has the same little mark as you." "Ethan, hush," she whispered desperately. "My daughter ran away after an argument about an arranged marriage," Richard continued, his voice breaking. "She had just turned 15. We never heard from her again." "I'm not your daughter," Amanda said through gritted teeth. "Then take the DNA test," he insisted. "If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and leave forever." Amanda's hands trembled visibly. Emma Grace noticed her mother's nervousness and hugged her leg. "If you're not Jennifer, why are you shaking like this?" asked a woman in line. "Because I'm scared of this crazy man," Amanda retorted, but her voice came out weak. Richard took a step forward, his eyes wet. "Do you remember your pink bedroom? The dolls you collected? The cat whiskers you found on the street and brought home in secret?" Each word felt like a punch to Amanda's gut. Memories flooded back. The pink room, the collection of porcelain dolls, the striped cat she'd hidden from her mother for weeks. "Stop it!" she shouted, startling the children. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. "Mommy, are you okay?" Emma Grace asked, worried. "I am, sweetheart." Amanda took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "This man is confused. Your mother always made that chocolate cake for your birthday," Richard insisted. "And you cried when she cut the first slice because you said she was hurting the cake." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. That memory was so specific, so intimate, that no one else could have known it. "How do you know that?" "Because I'm your father, Jennifer." Silence fell around them. Even the children stopped moving. Amanda looked at the photo again, and this time she couldn't deny the obvious. It was her at 15 in the garden of the mansion where she grew up. "Fine," she sighed, defeated. I was Jennifer, but I'm not your daughter anymore." Richard closed his eyes as if praying. Thank God. Thank God I found you. You didn't find anything. Amanda's voice turned cold. You kicked me out when you found out I was pregnant. Remember that? Richard's face twisted in pain. What? I never kicked you out. You ran away. I woke up one day and you were gone with just a few clothes in a backpack. Lies, Amanda shouted. You said I was a disgrace to the family, that I had tarnished the Reynolds name, that you never wanted to see me again. That's not true. Richard shook his head desperately. I never said that. You left after our fight about marriage. I've spent all these years looking for you. Miss Betty stepped in, sensing the situation was getting out of hand. Why don't you talk somewhere more private? This is drawing too much attention. I'm not going anywhere with him. Amanda crossed her arms. And I won't lose my spot in line. My kids need to eat. Richard looked around at the crowd of needy people waiting for the free meal. Without hesitation, he pulled out his wallet and turned to Miss Betty. How much to feed everyone in this line? Mr. Richard, you don't have to... How much? He insisted. About $2,000, but... Richard pulled out a stack of bills and handed over $5,000. I want everyone to eat well today, and bring tables and chairs. Let's make this a proper lunch. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Amanda watched with a mix of anger and admiration. It was just like the father she remembered, solving everything with money. Always like this, huh? She muttered, buying people off. I'm not buying anyone. Richard turned to her. I just want you to sit with me and talk. I've waited 20 years for this conversation. An hour later, everyone was seated at makeshift tables in the community center's courtyard. The smell of home-cooked food filled the air, and children ran between the tables. Ethan and Emma Grace stayed close to Amanda, eyeing the strange man who claimed to be their grandfather. Did you know you have a grandfather? Richard asked the children softly. Our mom said our grandparents went to heaven, Emma Grace answered innocently. Richard's heart ached. To them, he was in the same place as their mother's grandparents, gone forever. And you? What are your names? Ethan, the boy replied shyly. And she's my sister, Emma Grace. Beautiful names, Richard smiled. How old are you? I'm 8, and she's 10. Richard did the math in his head. If Amanda had run away at 15 and Emma Grace was 10, she'd gotten pregnant very young. The weight of responsibility he felt grew heavier. Amanda, tell me what happened after you left home. Amanda pushed the food around her plate without eating. Why do you want to know? To ease your conscience. To understand where I went wrong. To know how to help now. Help? She laughed bitterly. I haven't needed your help for 20 years. Looking around, Richard could clearly see that she did. The worn-out clothes, the children's thinness, the way they devoured their food, as if they didn't know when their next meal would come. Tell me, please. Amanda sighed, playing with her fork. When I left home, I was 3 months pregnant. I didn't really know what to do. I slept on the streets for a few nights until a family from a tenement here in Williamsburg took me in. Who were they? Mrs. Rose and Mr. Joe. They had 5 kids and barely enough food, but they let me stay in the back room. Emma Grace was born there. Richard listened in silence, processing the fact that his first granddaughter had been born in poverty while he'd been searching for her in upscale places. And Emma Grace's father? A boy my age who left me when he found out I was pregnant, just like Ethan's father, years later. Do they know who their fathers are? They know they have fathers who didn't want to stay with them. That's enough for now. Ethan, who had been listening, tugged his mother's hand. Mummy, do we have a grandpa now? The innocent question brought silence back to the table. Amanda looked at Richard, who waited anxiously for her answer. I don't know, sweetheart, we're still talking. Is he really rich? Emma Grace whispered loudly, making Amanda blush with embarrassment. Emma Grace! I'm just curious, Mommy. We've never seen a rich person up close. Richard bent down to the little girl's level. Emma Grace, money isn't the most important thing in life. What matters most is family, having people who love us. But it must be nice not to go hungry, the girl retorted with the brutal honesty of children. The comment hit Richard like a bullet. He looked at Amanda, who turned away, ashamed. "Do you go hungry?" "Sometimes," Ethan answered before his mother could stop him. "Ethan!" Amanda scolded. "But it's true, Mommy. Sometimes you say you're not hungry so you can give us your food." Richard felt his world collapse. His daughter, who had grown up in a mansion with dozens of staff, was going hungry to feed her own children. "Amanda, why didn't you come to me when things got hard? Go to the man who kicked me out while I was pregnant." She laughed bitterly. "Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have known where to find you. I changed my name years ago. I live with fake papers." "Why?" "Because I didn't want to be found. Because I was afraid you'd try to take my kids from me." "I would never do that. How was I supposed to know? You're not the same man who raised me. That man would have chased after his pregnant daughter, not waited for her to come back on her own." The accusation struck straight to his heart. Richard felt tears in his eyes. "I looked for you. I spent fortunes on private investigators. I searched the whole country." "But you looked in the wrong places," Amanda shot back. "You looked in fancy hotels, in wealthy family homes. You never checked the tenements, the shelters, the soup kitchen lines." It was true. Richard had always imagined his daughter being helped by some middle or upper-class family. He'd never considered she might be living in extreme poverty. "You're right," he admitted. "I didn't know this reality. I didn't know you could be going through this." "Of course you didn't. You've always lived in a bubble." Just then Ethan started coughing violently. The cough was dry, relentless, and the boy turned red from the strain. "Ethan!" Amanda stood up in alarm, patting his back. "Is he okay?" Richard asked worriedly. "It's this cough he's had for weeks. I don't have money to take him to the doctor." Ethan's coughing worsened, and suddenly he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Emma Grace screamed, Amanda panicked, and Richard immediately pulled out his phone. "Dr. Thompson, it's Richard Reynolds. I need you in Williamsburg right now. It's urgent." A child just passed out. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. "No," Amanda grabbed his arm. "I don't want your help." "Will your stubbornness cost your son his life?" Richard shot back harshly. "Don't talk like that," she shouted, but Ethan remained unconscious on the floor. Miss Betty approached. "Amanda, let the man help. Ethan needs a doctor." Still reluctant, Amanda nodded. Richard returned to the phone, giving precise location instructions. Within 15 minutes, a private ambulance arrived at the community center. Dr. Thompson, a middle-aged man who clearly had known Richard for years, quickly examined Ethan. "Severe malnutrition combined with a respiratory infection. We need to take him to the hospital immediately." "I don't have money for a private hospital," Amanda protested. "I do," Richard said firmly, "and I'll cover everything." "I don't want—" "For God's sake, Amanda," Richard exploded. "Your son is sick. Put your pride aside for 5 minutes." The force of her father's reaction made her step back. It was the first time in 20 years she'd heard that tone, and for a second she felt like the frightened teenager she once was. At the hospital, while Ethan received IV fluids and medication, Richard and Amanda waited in the hallway. Emma Grace slept in a chair, exhausted from the day's emotions. "Why did you disappear like that?" Richard asked softly. "Because you said you'd force me to marry Williams's son to save the business. And when you found out I was pregnant with another man's child, you were furious." "It's true I was furious, but not because of the pregnancy. I was furious because you didn't trust me enough to tell me." Amanda looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "When I found out you were pregnant, my first reaction was to call off the arranged marriage. I was going to take care of you and the baby. But you yelled at me. I yelled because I found out by accident, hearing you vomiting in the bathroom. I thought you didn't trust me." Amanda felt the world spin again. Had the entire narrative she'd built in her head about that day been wrong? "But you said I was a disgrace." "I never said that. Maybe it was misunderstood, but I would never say that to you." "Then why didn't you come after me when I ran away?" Richard lowered his head. "Because I thought you'd come back. I thought it was teenage rebellion. By the time I realized you weren't returning, a week had passed, and I couldn't find you anywhere." "Did you really look?" Amanda, I sold apartments to pay for detectives. I placed ads in newspapers across the country. Your mother fell ill from crying and worrying so much. The mention of her mother made Amanda close her eyes. How is Mom? Richard hesitated before answering. Your mother? She passed away 5 years ago. Passed away where? To heaven, my dear. The news hit Amanda like a punch to the gut. She doubled over, sobbing. No, it can't be. She spent the last 15 years of her life searching for you. She died not knowing if you were okay. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted you to calm down first. Your mother left a letter for you in case I ever found you. Richard pulled a yellowed envelope from his jacket's inner pocket. With trembling hands, Amanda opened it. My dearest daughter, if you're reading this letter, it means your father finally found you. Not a single day has passed without me knowing you were the greatest love of my life. I don't regret a single second I spent caring for you. I know you left home thinking we didn't love you anymore. That was never true. Maybe we didn't know how to show our love the right way. But you were always our little princess. Your father never stopped looking for you. He sold things, took out loans, did whatever it took to pay the detectives. I begged him to stop, to accept that you didn't want to be found. But he always said, as long as I'm alive, I'll keep searching for my daughter. If you have children when you read this, know they have grandparents who would love them dearly. Your father will be the best grandfather in the world, I'm sure of it. Forgive me for not running after you that day. I thought you'd come home on your own. It was the biggest mistake of my life. I love you forever, Mom. Amanda sobbed with the letter in her hands. 20 years of anger and resentment began to dissolve at her mother's words. She really never stopped looking for me. Never. In the end, when she was already very sick, she still asked me not to give up. And you? Did you ever think of giving up? Richard looked at his granddaughter sleeping in the chair. How could I give up? Knowing you might have children I'd never meet, Doctor. Thompson approached then, interrupting the conversation. The boy is stable. We'll keep him hospitalized for 2 days for observation, but he'll be fine. Can I see him? Amanda stood quickly. Of course. He's awake and asking for his mother. In the room, Ethan was pale but smiling. Emma Grace ran to hug her brother. Ethan, you scared me. Sorry, Emma. I'm okay now. Richard stayed by the door, watching the scene. The children looked so much like Amanda at their age. The same dark hair, the same expressive eyes. Mom, Ethan called. The doctor said I was hungry for vitamins. Is that true? Amanda couldn't answer. Richard stepped closer to the bed. It's true, Ethan, but now you'll eat right and get strong. Are you really my grandpa? If your mom allows it, I'd love to be your grandpa. Ethan looked at Amanda, waiting for an answer. Emma Grace watched intently too. Ethan, Emma Grace. Amanda took a deep breath. This is your grandpa Richard. He's my dad. The children processed the information silently for a few seconds. Then why didn't you talk to each other? Emma Grace asked. Because grown-ups can be stupid sometimes, Richard answered, making the kids laugh. Richard, Amanda scolded, but she was smiling for the first time that day. It's true, your mum and I fought a long time ago, and we were too stubborn to fix things. But will you fix it now? Ethan asked hopefully. Amanda looked at Richard, who waited anxiously for her reply. We'll try, she said softly. During Ethan's 2 days in the hospital, Richard never left. He slept in an uncomfortable chair in the room, insisted on paying for everything, and slowly won the children's trust. Emma Grace discovered a passion for business when Richard explained how the family company worked. Ethan was fascinated by the stories his grandpa told about Amanda as a child. Your mom once brought a stray dog home, Richard shared. Hid it in her room for a week before I found out. And then, Emma Grace asked. Then I pretended to be mad, but I'd actually seen the dog on the first day. Let her think she'd fooled me. Where's the dog now? Richard suddenly grew sad. He lived with us for many years. When she left, the dog got depressed. He'd wait by her bedroom door for her to come back. The children sensed their grandpa's sadness, and instinctively moved closer. Emma Grace held his hand. "Grandpa, Mum's back now. You don't have to be sad anymore." The word grandpa echoed in the room like music. It was the first time anyone had called him that, and Richard had to fight back tears in front of his grandchildren. "You're right, Emma Grace. Mom's back now." Amanda watched the scene from the bedroom door. Seeing her father interacting with her children stirred conflicting emotions. On one hand, she was moved watching the kids get to know their grandfather. On the other, she was afraid to get too close and face rejection again. When Ethan was discharged, Richard made an offer. "Amanda, I want you all to come live with me." "No," she answered immediately. "Why not?" "Because I don't want to depend on you. If we ever fight again, you could kick me out, and then my children would suffer." Richard understood her fear. 20 years of living in uncertainty had left deep scars. "What if I buy a house for you? In your name. That way you'll have security." "I don't want your pity." "It's not pity. It's a father's and grandfather's love." Emma Grace tugged her mother's hand. "Mommy, is it really a house just for us?" "Emma Grace, that's not how things work. We can't accept houses as gifts." "Why not?" Ethan asked. "Grandpa wants to give it. We want to take it. What's the problem?" The children's simple logic left the adults speechless. "The problem is, I need to work to support you. It's my responsibility." "Then work for me," Richard suggested, "at the company." "Doing what? I barely finished high school." "You spent 20 years learning to survive on the streets of New York City. You know a reality I've never experienced. You can help me create social projects." Amanda fell silent, considering the offer. "How much would you pay? How much do you think your work is worth?" "I don't know. I've never worked at a company." "Then we'll figure it out together." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now continuing. A week later, Amanda and the children were seeing the house Richard had bought for them. It was a simple but comfortable 2-story home in a middle-class neighborhood on the west side. "It's not very big," he apologized, "but it has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a backyard for the kids to play in." "It's perfect," Amanda whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The children ran through the house, exploring every room, shouting with joy. It was the first time in their lives they'd had their own bedrooms. "Mommy," Emma Grace called from upstairs, "my room has a bed just for me." "And mine has a desk for doing homework," Ethan added. Amanda sat on the living room sofa and cried, tears of relief, gratitude, fear, and longing for the lost years. Richard sat beside her. "Are you okay?" "I'm trying to process all this. Yesterday we were in line at the soup kitchen, and today we have our own home. It's really yours. The deed is in all 3 of your names." "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're my daughter. Because they're my grandchildren. Because I missed 20 years of your lives, and I want to make up for lost time." "What if I can't be the daughter you hoped for?" Richard took her hand. "You already are. You raised 2 wonderful children on your own, faced hardships I can't even imagine, and never lost your dignity. How could I not be proud of you?" That night, for the first time in 20 years, Amanda slept without fear of tomorrow. The children were safe in their own rooms, there was food in the fridge, and she had a family again. The next day, Richard took her to see the construction company's office. The 20-story building in downtown New York City was intimidating, but he held her hand in the elevator. "Nervous?" "Very. What if I don't know how to do anything right?" "Impossible. You survived 20 years under the toughest conditions. An office will be a breeze." On the 15th floor, Richard introduced her as the new social projects consultant. Some of the older employees whispered among themselves, clearly recognizing her face despite the years that had passed. Deborah, Richard's secretary for 15 years, couldn't hide her emotion. "Oh my God, Jennifer, is it really you?" "It's Amanda now," she corrected gently. "Your father never stopped talking about you, never stopped searching." In Richard's private office, he showed her a thick folder filled with detective reports, newspaper ads, lists of places visited during his search. This folder holds 20 years of looking for you." Amanda flipped through the documents, amazed by her father's dedication. There were newspaper clippings with her photo, maps of New York City with marked locations, even reports of conversations with homeless people. "You came close a few times," she murmured, seeing he had searched the neighborhood where she lived years ago. "Close, but never close enough." In one report, she saw something that surprised her. "You knew where I worked?" "Where?" "Here. I worked here as a cleaner 3 years ago at night." Richard froze. "What?" "I cleaned this office. Sometimes I'd sit in this chair, imagining what it would be like to be rich again." "How is that possible? How did no one recognize you?" "Because cleaners are invisible. No one really looks at a cleaner." Richard stood up, pacing back and forth, processing the information. "You were here, in my office, and I didn't know. There was one night you stayed late working. I needed to clean your office, but you were here. I waited outside for 2 hours. Why didn't you come in? Why didn't you tell me who you were?" "Because I was scared. Scared you'd send me away in front of the other employees. Scared you'd be ashamed." The revelation left Richard devastated. His daughter had been just feet away and he hadn't even noticed. "Did anyone else know who you were?" "Mr. Anthony, the cleaning supervisor. Deborah knew too, but she promised not to say anything." Richard stormed out of the office and returned 10 minutes later with Deborah and Mr. Anthony. "Is it true you both knew Amanda was my daughter?" The two lowered their heads, embarrassed. "Yes, Dr. Richard," Mr. Anthony confessed. "But she asked us not to say anything. And you thought it was right to hide this from me?" "I'm sorry, Doctor," Deborah cried. "But she said if we told you, she'd disappear again, and she needed the job to support her kids." Richard looked at Amanda, who remained silent. "Is that true?" "Yes, I threatened them. Said if you found out I'd leave New York City and you'd never find me again." "Why?" "Because I wasn't ready. I was still angry. It still hurt too much." Richard sat down, running his hands through his hair. How many other people knew? "A few. The doorman, the cafeteria lady, some old employees, but everyone respected my request. For 3 years you worked here, and I didn't know. For 3 years I watched you from afar. You were older, sadder, always working late, always alone. You saw that? Saw you coming in early, leaving late. Never saw you have lunch with anyone. Never saw you happy." The confession left the office silent. Richard realized that while he'd been searching for his daughter, she'd been watching him work, trying to understand who he'd become. "And what did you think, seeing me like that?" "I thought you were suffering too, but I still wasn't ready to forgive." "And now you are?" Amanda looked around the office, remembering the nights she'd spent cleaning there and observing her father's life from a distance. "Now I'm trying." That afternoon, Richard formally introduced her as the company's new director of social projects. The first project would be creating a support center for single mothers in Williamsburg, exactly where they'd reunited. "Why start there?" one of the directors asked. "Because that's where I found my family again," Richard answered simply. Amanda took on the project with total dedication. She knew firsthand the problems she aimed to solve, and that made all the difference. In 2 months, she managed to establish partnerships with the city government, local NGOs, and even with Ms. Betty's community center. The children adjusted quickly to their new life. Emma Grace enrolled in a private school and discovered she had a talent for math. Ethan, now fully recovered, turned out to be an excellent soccer player. On weekends, Richard would take them to places Amanda had never been able to show her kids: zoos, museums, parks, shopping malls. He delighted in seeing his grandchildren's joy as they discovered the world. "Grandpa," Emma Grace asked one Saturday at the park, "why did you and Mom fight for so long?" Richard looked over at Amanda, who was playing with Ethan on the slide. "Because sometimes adults are too proud to apologize. And have you apologized now? We're learning how. Is it hard to say sorry?" "It's very hard, Emma Grace, especially when you've been hurt for a long time." The girl thought about that. "But does it feel good afterward? It's the best feeling in the world. 6 months after their reunion, the family faced their first big test. Amanda found out she was pregnant. The news came during a routine checkup Richard had insisted she attend. The doctor congratulated her, but she left the office in a total panic. How did this happen? She kept asking herself in the hospital hallway. Richard, who had gone with her, was still processing the news. "Who's the father?" "Tyler. A guy We saw each other a few times last year." "Where is he now?" "I don't know. He disappeared when he found out I had kids. Said he didn't want responsibility." "Does he know about the pregnancy?" "No. And I don't want him to." Richard stayed silent for a few minutes. "Do you want to keep the baby?" "I do. I always wanted more children. But now, how is this going to work? The kids are just getting used to our new life, and now I'll have another baby to raise alone." "Not alone. You have me now." "Richard, you've already done so much. I can't ask you to raise another grandchild who isn't even your blood. All your children are my grandchildren. Period." Amanda's pregnancy brought a new dynamic to the family. Emma, Grace, and Ethan were thrilled at the idea of having a little brother or sister. Richard turned one of the house's rooms into a nursery. "Grandpa, will you love the baby as much as us?" Ethan asked one afternoon. "I'll love them exactly the same." "How can you be sure?" "Because love has no limits, Ethan. The more people we love, the more love we have to give." During the pregnancy, Amanda and Richard grew even closer. He accompanied her to doctor's appointments, helped with her nausea, and talked to the baby in her belly. "You're being a better grandpa than you were a dad," Amanda remarked one day. "Why do you say that?" "Because you're here. When I was little, you were always working." "That's true. I thought providing financial comfort was enough. I didn't realize you needed my presence. And now you do? Now I know no amount of money in the world can replace bedtime hugs and conversations." The birth of Lily, the name the kids had chosen, was a moment of pure joy for the whole family. Richard wept openly when he saw his granddaughter, and Emma, Grace, and Ethan became the most protective siblings in the world. "She looks just like Mom when she was a baby," Richard commented, looking at an old photo. "How would you know?" "You weren't there when I was a baby," Amanda replied without malice, but the words hit Richard hard. "You're right. I missed your first steps, your first words, your first bike ride. I won't miss a single moment with Lily." And he didn't. Richard was there for every one of the baby's smiles, every first sound, every little developmental milestone. Amanda watched her father's dedication with admiration and a touch of sadness for what might have been. A year after Lily's birth, Richard's company faced a severe financial crisis. An investigation revealed that one of the partners had embezzled millions of dollars, nearly driving the construction company into bankruptcy. "I might have to sell your house," Richard confessed one night, tears in his eyes. "It's okay," Amanda replied calmly. "How is it okay? You'll be left without a home." "Richard, before we met you, we didn't have a house. If we have to, we'll go back to a small apartment. What matters is that we're together." Amanda's reaction surprised Richard. He had expected despair, complaints, maybe even accusations that she had trusted him for nothing. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be? You didn't steal the money you were stolen from." "But I promised you security." "And you kept that promise. For a year and a half, we had a life we never dreamed possible. If it ends now, it was still worth it." The children reacted with the same ease as their mother when they learned they might have to move. "It's okay, Grandpa," Emma Grace said. "We've lived in much smaller places before. And if we can't afford private school anymore, we'll go back to public school," Ethan added. "We know how to manage." The grandchildren's maturity moved Richard deeply, and at the same time left him ashamed. They were comforting him when it should have been the other way around. It was Amanda who came up with the idea that saved the company. "Why don't you turn the construction company into a social project business?" she suggested during a meeting with the lawyers. "What do you mean?" "Building affordable housing, renovating community centers, partnering with NGOs. The government has several funding programs for that. But does it make money? Less than building luxury condos, but yes, it makes money. And more importantly, it gives us purpose. Richard decided to bet on his daughter's idea. He fired the dishonest partner, restructured the company to focus on social projects, and made Amanda vice president. The transformation wasn't easy. There were months when they barely made payroll, moments when Richard considered giving up entirely, but Amanda always encouraged him. "Remember when you found me in the soup kitchen line?" she said during one of the worst crises. "You didn't give up searching for me for 20 years. You're not giving up on the company now." Gradually, the new strategy began to pay off. Reynolds Construction became a leader in affordable housing projects in New York City. They won city contracts, partnerships with private companies looking to invest in social responsibility, and recognition in the press. We did it. Richard celebrated the day they signed the biggest contract of the company's new era. "We did it," Amanda repeated, hugging her father. 2 years after the crisis, the family gathered for Lily's 4th birthday. The little girl ran around the backyard of the home they had managed to keep, surrounded by her siblings and grandfather. Emma Grace, now 13, showed growing interest in the family business. Ethan, at 11, remained passionate about soccer, but also helped his grandfather with the company's spreadsheets. "Grandpa," Emma Grace asked during lunch, "will I be able to work at the company someday too? If you want to, and study hard, of course. And can I be a soccer player and help with the company at the same time?" "Of course, Ethan. You can be anything you want to be." Amanda watched the conversation with a smile. Her children had opportunities she had never dreamed of at their age, not just financial ones, but above all, the unconditional support of family. "What are you thinking about?" Richard asked, noticing her silence. "I'm thinking it was all worth it, everything. The 20 lost years, the suffering, the hardships, everything was worth it to get to this point. You don't resent me for all that wasted time?" "No. I'm grateful you never gave up looking for me." That night, after the kids had gone to sleep, father and daughter sat in the backyard to talk. It was a habit they'd developed over the years, long conversations about life, business, and plans for the future. "Richard, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you regret anything?" Richard thought for a long time before answering. "I regret not chasing after you the first day you ran away. I regret not understanding the reality of poor people better before you disappeared. I regret being an absent father when you were a child. Just that. And I regret taking 20 years to discover that my daughter is an incredible, brave, intelligent woman who managed to raise 3 wonderful kids, practically alone." Amanda smiled, moved. "And you? What do you regret?" "I regret running away instead of talking. I regret misjudging your intentions. I regret being too proud to reach out when things got hard." "Just that? And I regret missing 20 years with the best father a daughter could ask for." The two embraced in the backyard under the stars, with the sound of their children sleeping upstairs. 20 years of hurt dissolved completely in that hug. "Richard?" "Yes?" "Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for giving me a second chance." Years later, when Emma Grace took over as president of the company at 25, she made sure to maintain the social focus her mother had implemented. Ethan became a professional soccer player, but also served as an ambassador for the construction company's projects in underserved communities. Lily grew up hearing stories of how the family reunited and always said she wanted to work with her grandfather when she grew up. Richard lived to see great-grandchildren, attended every graduation, every wedding, every achievement of the family he'd regained. He never worked late again, never missed a family dinner, never let work become more important than the people he loved. Amanda became a respected businesswoman, a speaker at social entrepreneurship events, and a leader in affordable housing projects, but she always said her greatest achievement wasn't professional. "What was your greatest achievement?" a reporter once asked in an interview. "Learning that it's never too late to start over. That family love overcomes any hardship. That forgiving isn't forgetting the past, it's building a better future." And if you could go back in time, would you do anything differently? I wouldn't run away. I'd talk to my father instead of assuming his intentions. I'd trust in his love for me. Any message for families going through similar situations? That pride is love's greatest enemy, That it's never too late to apologize or begin again. That family is the most precious thing we have, and it's worth fighting for. At the end of the interview, Amanda looked out the office window and saw Richard playing in the backyard with his great-grandchildren. At 80, he was still the most devoted and loving grandfather anyone could imagine. Their story proved that some wounds only heal with time and love, that some families need to get lost to truly find each other, that the love between parents and children can survive 2 decades of separation and grow even stronger. Amanda never went hungry again, never slept unsure of where she'd be the next day, never feared tomorrow, but most of all, she never again doubted the unconditional love that exists in a true family. The end of the story. Now tell me what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Amanda made the right decision by giving her father a second chance? Share your honest opinion in the comments. If the story moved you as much as it moved us, don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories like this one. Thank you so much for being here with us.